Is aim assist overpowered on controllers? FPS Veteran Thoughts featuring BulletL, Apex Legends Pro.
If an input needs aim assist to compete, it's not as good, clearly. But games are meant to be fun.
Well, this is going to be relative to each game. Um, so if you take a game like Call of Duty or Halo or even Rocket League, um, those games are games designed for console. The games are designed to have a controller. Um, so it's understandable for like a competitive scene to have the option to have multiple inputs, but from a competitive standpoint, if one input just grossly overshines the other one, then that's going to be the meta of that competitive scene. It just so happens that for Halo, it's a controller dominated game. It's been like that for years. Call of Duty, it's like that for Call of Duty. It's been like that for years. Same thing with Rocket League. Rocket League, you have the option to play with mouse and key, but for the most part, I think, because I don't keep up with it that much, for the most part, I think everybody plays on controller. But again, you don't really have aim assist in Rocket League or whatever. But it's just a more muscle memory type thing for because the game is easier. Like, because when I first played Rocket League, I tried on MK. I was like, this ain't happening. But then when I plugged in a controller, I was like, oh, it makes more sense. It's a controller game. So it is what it is.
So if you want to come back from school or work and just play some games on the couch, why not have aim assist? That's fair. But if the best players in the game are switching to the worst input, then something is clearly wrong. And
Oh, look it. What is this? What is this? Controller, roller. Skill issue. Oh, MK, Hemwatos. Controller. I don't know what this thing is like referencing, like what list this is, but it's probably like some sort of like total kills like per players or something for like each group or something like that. Um, but yeah. And then this video, I remember seeing this video. This was like I think some controller player perfectly tracking somebody that wasn't quite neo strafing, but like doing his damnedest to like get out of the way. And it was a rough watch.
that's why we're here. After seeing all the debate and getting one-magged
Yeah.
by people on controllers, I started thinking about how to actually handle this. Like if I was a game dev, it seems both sides right now want the other to shut up or go away. But that's not good for the health of the game or the community. It's better to have more players, not fewer.
It is better to have more players and not fewer. However, for the health of the game, um, if what you say is true, more players is better for the game, then you got to understand when it comes to FPS games, most people suck at aiming. And what are people going to do to try to be good at it? They're going to take the path of least resistance. So what does that mean? They're going to have the choice of picking up a controller that has either 0.6 or 0.4 aim assist, or they're going to pick up a mouse and keyboard and they're going to go, okay, this is not bad. And then they're going to verse a couple controllers and get one clip by them. And then they're going to go, oh, this is tough. Then they might discover Kovacs or Aim Lab. And then they have to realize, oh, I got to start aim training? What? I just want to jump on and enjoy the game. I don't got all this other like extra time for aim training. I just want to jump in and play the game. I don't want to have to play another game to get good at this game. All right. And then, there's a whole other conversation to have between, the casual scene versus the competitive scene. And, but, let's keep watching.
So mouse players want aim assist to be removed or reduced. Controller players want the mouse players to deal with it, or if it's really that much better, then switch. Because the fact is, mouse and keyboard have so many advantages just being the better input method. Yeah, good jokes about mouse and keyboard being used for spreadsheets, but unless you're playing something like VR, fighting or racing games, mouse and keyboard are the best, especially for first-person shooters.
This is
so
true.
Who is right, controller or mouse? I think.
And that whole thing, that argument line right there, which one is better for FPS, it depends on if that FPS has crossplay enabled or not. You know, if you look at something like CS or Valorant, I'm not entirely sure, but I don't know if there's crossplay enabled for that game, and I don't know if you have the option to play with a controller on those games, but the overwhelming majority of players in those games are on mouse and key because that's just that type of game. So that's going to be the trend.
I think we're missing some things from the debate because, and this may be surprising, but the answer may not be to nerf aim assist, but to remove the nerfs on mouse and keyboard. I'll explain that later.
Oh.
First, let's get some extra perspective from BulletL, an Australian Apex pro, movement god, and all-around great guy. So Bullet, how strong is aim assist?
It is relatively strong, but at the same time, it's also relatively situational.
This is true. So he's probably going to be talking about Apex or whatever. So if you don't know, in Apex, if you play Apex on a computer, but you use a controller on computer, you get 0.4 aim assist. So that's about half. All right. And if you play console Apex with a controller, you get 0.6 aim assist, which is a little over half. So aim assist, having about half of, your input being done for you, I don't know.
When you're comparing like aim assist in a competitive pro setting, I think at the highest level at LAN, basically, I would say mouse and keyboard's probably better, but for all other aspects of the game, ranked, standard games, everything else, I'd definitely say like aim assist takes the cake.
So this is true. So what he's just done is he's taken two like sample groups or whatever, and he's saying at the most competitive tippy top level, M&K is better in general. But for everything that's not that tippy top, top 40 teams or 20 teams, the final, 6 rounds for like the Apex, like ALGS or whatever, for everything that's not that, controller is generally is going to be better. So who do you cater to? Are you going to cater to like the tippy top 0.1 of 1% player base, or are you going to cater to the 99% of player base?
And why is that?
Just the overall consistency that you have, like the strength of just having full confidence that you peek a corner, your aim's always going to be on point and you're going to hit your shots, like as long as you're a pretty decent player, that is.
Yep.
Okay, so there are upsides and downsides. If you get good enough on mouse and keyboard, you're probably not too concerned with controller players. But
so what he doesn't say about, once you get good enough is he doesn't tell you how long it takes to get good enough. And that's going to vary from person to person. If you're like a young buck and you like have some natural talent and, you put in some work and effort into like aim training, or maybe you don't even aim train, and you just play the game a lot, then you'll be able to succeed, versus someone that just picks up a controller for the first time. Maybe they're a little good, maybe they're a little bad, but at least they'll have about 50% chance of that reticle being on target as long as, they acquire the range.
I think this is part of why pros are switching. It's just a nicer experience to play the game on controller, without all the nerfs and annoying visual elements that ruin your aim on mouse and keyboard.
So he did mention visual elements. So this is a big hot topic, and it always will be, between the casuals, competitors, and the developers of the game. In general, when a developer decides to add visual clutter, it's for the sake of immersion and at the detriment of competitive integrity. So there's always going to be that to and fro, Sometimes the visual clutter or whatever will act as like a notification thing, like, hey, you're getting shot at, your shield's about to go down, oh, you're cracked, stuff like that, I think is like all right. But then when you have like blood splatter, like all these like little black dots, or maybe like hit markers, some people do or don't like hit markers, or I know in Apex there's like random points where there's just a glare on the screen if you face like a shiny object and the player just seemingly disappears. in front, and then also sometimes you can just shoot the ground and create a little sandstorm in front of your face. So that's for the sake of immersion, like I said, but at the detriment of competitive integrity.
So again, hearing from Bullet, how does the visual clutter get in the way of mouse and keyboard?
Yeah, if you just look at this is hilarious. And I wonder if he'll even mention what was that thing? That like the headshot thing. That what was it, aim kick or something? Bullet kick? I forgot. Like whenever you get headshot, your aim whips up. But if you just look at this alone, if you play the game to be immersed, if you're playing like any game to be immersed, then I think visual clutter is like all right. Or if you're like a casual person, or even like maybe more than casual, maybe you're like a try hard casual, like even in there, like, and you kind of enjoy all this stuff. Maybe you don't mind it, and you see all this, but granted, this isn't like on the screen the whole time. This is only like a fraction of a second, but a fraction of a second is enough for someone to like move out of the way of your crosshairs and all these things. For some people, this is all right, but for other people, this is just annoying. You have a bunch of pixels in your way. Like this is signifying like your shield's gone. You're getting hit with flesh, and then I think this guy has a shotgun or something like that. It's like a big wide thing, or whatever, of sparks. It's like he's shooting like sun rays at you. Honestly, for some people this is fine, but other people this is too much.
Obviously this is again situational, but certain aspects of the game where you'll have like muzzle flash and where your line of sight is hindered.
Oh yeah. So he was in the target. Then there's a little bit of gun kick. He shot from far away. A gun kicks up, and then the enemy seemingly disappears.
By visual aspects of the game, it's difficult to track your opponents, and because of that, if you can't see what you're shooting at, it's pretty hard to track accurately and efficiently. When you have aim assist, the certain parts of the tracking pull for you, so you can get a rough idea of where you need to be aiming without actually being able to see them as clearly as you would.
Right.
Yeah, so essentially what he's saying is visual clutter, like, oh my god, I'm kind of sorry I like paused right here. Like visual clutter isn't much, doesn't affect controller as much as it does on M&K. Just because aim assist persists through visual clutter for the most part. There are obviously a couple abilities, like bank smokes or cat walls or whatever, that stop aim assist. But there are a lot of other visual effects that hamper one input and not so much the other, is all he's saying.
Right, so when we're talking about thermite grenades, fire from Fuse's ult, snow, the muzzle flash as you mentioned, horizon ults, and Q.
Oh yeah, this is, I mean, for me, I'm like an average M&K bro, and if this is me, like besides this health bar and this number, I am like, where'd the guy go?
All these are adding those visual effects.
Oh, there he is.
Clutter to your screen, so you're getting limited information
there he is.
for your aim to track. But the controller doesn't need that much information because it'll track for you, and you just need to see like a slideshow, and you'll be fine. As long as you know the general vicinity of where they are, it'll aim for you.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously it won't aim for you, but it'll start pulling and giving, like, it'll basically kind of like tell you, hey, like this guy's moving to your left. If you can't see him, like it's giving you like small adjustments to help you figure out like where he's going. And that situation like basically applies through everything except through windows and through bang smoke. But I believe through Gibby ults and every other like bit of ultimate and everything else in the game, like I'm pretty sure it just automatically just pulls through.
And that's why people are starting to use Bangalore more. The smokes actually counter that.
Yeah, counter like the aim assist, and it kind of makes it an even playing field.
Unless you have digis. Does the aim assist work with the digi?
No, it doesn't.
Interesting. So that's...
Oh wow, I didn't even know that. So even if a controller has a digi through a bang smoke, they still don't get aim assist. Well, that's news to me. Shows you how much I've played the game.
where mouse and
Yeah.
keyboard players actually have the advantage.
Yeah, it's a flat, even ground. Obviously, like once you leave the smoke, it changes. But for the most part, while you're in a smoke, like yeah, it's an even playing field for sure.
Yeah, but because it's an even playing field, mouse and keyboard has the advantage because they can actually aim properly. And we spoke about the fact that not having to worry about your aim so much, it actually frees up brain power. You mentioned Imperial Hal switching to controller and actually winning a tournament. He's known as one of the best in-game leaders. So what's the story there? Do you think he would have won on mouse and keyboard too? Or was not having to worry about aim so much actually giving him enough of an advantage to focus more on leading?
Okay, so I'm just gonna stir the pot a little bit. Hal is fine on M&K. However, mechanically, he ain't the cream of the crop. Oh man, but nah.
I mean, I'd say it obviously had a very big impact. Without a doubt, he's an incredible player, and he had success previously when it was mainly a predominantly mouse and keyboard playing field. But obviously, like the landscape's changed, and now
Yeah, maybe if the tournament was like a year or two ago, it was Hal and M&K versus the other M&K bros, maybe he would have won. But for the evolution of the game to what it is now, you see a lot of crazy stuff happening on like all the M&K bros. It's crazy. Like there's a big skill like gap even within the professionals. It's there.
now, I guess, to fill the role that he wants to fill, which is, you know, to do a solid amount of fragging and also leading his team, playing on controller was just the right decision for him. As you can see, it's led to an extreme amount of success. Like he won the first LAN that he like switched to it on, so it obviously worked out really well for him.
Yeah, which is just incredible to think about. Did he have much experience before that on controller, or was that a new thing for him?
He had a little bit, and in the lead up to that event, he had been playing on and off for like the past, like, I don't know, maybe 6-7 months. He was probably trying to work towards being able to play on controller, but it obviously took some time for him to learn slowly while also still playing on mouse and key, because he didn't want to just, you know, go from being so confident on one input to just like, you know, relearning half the stuff and being like a detriment to his team.
And that's
So there is a thing that they're kind of hinting at. So there is, you know, I think I mentioned this earlier, like how long it takes to get like decent at M&K versus the time it takes to get decent at controller. It's very different. Like the length of time, it's very hard. Like I'm not gonna lie. If you watch like a bunch of like streamer people that like switch back and forth sometimes or whatever if they're bored, they fry on M&K and they switch to controller and they can still fry or whatever. But for like a casual person, that's not there. Like being able to swap back and forth, most people just pick one input and just stick with it. You know, that's what happens for the most part.
another point. You can't just have anyone jump on controller and play really well. It still takes a lot of practice. I think it's really unfair to call a controller player skillless. They're clearly very good at what they do, and not everyone's going to be able to do it. So I do respect how hard it is to play on controller, but the aim assist, through all the clutter and less nerfs, does seem to be giving controller players the advantage in fights, which
The reason they get the advantage in fights is because a lot of the time, fights are boiled down to close range. Like point of attack or whatever, like, you know, within 50 meters of each other, if not closer, depending on, you know, how you set everything up and whatnot. And I think he said before, like, controllers really thrive in that close range area. It's just so that's what ends up happening.
could be said is the most important part of the game, really. It's a first-person shooter. And Bullet, you mentioned the reaction time factor. Just explain that a bit.
So with controller, when you're aiming from left to right, you need to take your like joystick from one side to the other side. You know, it has to cross that center mass, I guess. Whereas on mouse and keyboard, you just
So what he means by crossing the center is when you push a controller thumbstick, like your right thumbstick or, you know, whatever side you aim with, like to like turn and whatnot, the game registers your thumb movement or the stick movement and it like you can like push the stick and stop, but the game will keep registering like let's say left or whatever. It'll keep registering left inputs, and it'll just constantly put those in. If you're facing an enemy that's like strafing back and forth, you have to move your thumbstick back to the center, and once your thumbstick is in the center, the game doesn't recognize any difference in position, so you get no movement or whatever from like aiming or turning or whatever. So you have to cross the center and go until the your game recognizes that you're like on the right side, like you got the stick toward the right, and then it'll start inputting like inputs so you can like continue to track the enemy is what that means essentially.
Just like move your mouse like left if you want it to go left, or you move it right if you want it to go right, and it changes like exactly where it is. Whereas like
Okay, and then the other thing they don't really mention is the smoothness. So it's really easy to track a target when you can move your crosshair in a smooth manner, as opposed to like jerky or if you're nervous. Being smooth at close range, for me anyway, on M&K is really tough. You know, I'm not gonna high road. I get nervous in close range fights or whatever when I did play, and I was like okay at it or whatever, but I wasn't as smooth as and consistent as like a controller, like how smooth they were. And here's the thing, controller, even if you were to turn aim assist off, you still just get perfect smoothness. Smoothness is a thing you have to learn on M&K.
using a controller, you have to use like a thumbstick, and it has to cross like certain sides of the, I guess, like the joystick. And in order to compensate for that physic of the controller, you have rotational aim assist, which basically automatically starts pulling to one side when your, like, I guess your enemy moves a certain direction, and it happens instantly. There is no reaction time at all. So where visually you'd need to process a player moving and then react to it, the aim assist is already pulling in that direction, and then by the time you move your thumbstick there, you're already on target anyway. So basically on mouse and key, you see where the player's moving, then you react to it. 200 milliseconds is the average reaction time.
Yep.
You're moving your mouse there, and it's just like more steps you got to do.
Okay, I didn't know that. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What about movement? So all the fancy like super glides and what's it called? Tap strafes. So
yeah, tap strafe.
all the super glides and tap strafes, does that factor in at all, or is
Okay, so you can break down each movement mechanic on like controller versus M&K. A lot of the movement stuff is really situational. Obviously, on M&K, you tap strafe like a lot, just in general. Once you learn it, it's a relatively simple skill to learn. And once you learn it, it's pretty easy to incorporate it into like just general gameplay. So I would say most people on M&K just know how to tap strafe, and it's not even like that beneficial. It's like, okay, like you can turn a corner a little bit sharper. Super gliding, which is a really nice mechanic when you go to like mantle something and you hit crouch jump or jump crouch at the same time, and it like slings your character forward like really speedy. Both inputs can do that, but M&K is the one that can like tap strafe like and change direction really quickly. So that's a skill in and of itself.
movement not an issue at that point?
I mean, most people at that level have extremely good aim, so even if you have the best movement, it's only going to do so much and get you so far. I'd say movement comes in to keep you alive in certain situations, but obviously, like, you could have the best movement in the world, but at the end of the day, you need to do damage, otherwise you're...
Yeah, so he pretty much summed it up right there. You can fatigue wall bounce and hit a shotgun to somebody's dome all you want. It's like movement doesn't kill players, bullets do. So that's all that is.
The team's going to fall over. Can't outrun bullets, you know?
Yeah.
Right. It's still the aim assist factor. Like, it's becoming so strong for these guys that are so good on these inputs that they are switching over a mouse which is made for aim, essentially.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that is the question, just is aim assist too strong?
I mean, it's hard to say. It's impossible to put them head to head against each other just because.
Yes, it is impossible to put them against each other in a fair way. I like in an ideal world, it does not exist, in my own opinion. The controllers can have their tournament, the M&K bros can have their tournament, and that should be it. End of discussion. But that's not the world we live in. We live in a world with crossplay, and teams have both inputs on the same team, and that's the trend. So yeah.
To be honest, they're not supposed to be competing against each other. Like, they definitely weren't created to be competing against each other, and I guess that's why they're separated by platform. But yeah, I mean, the landscape's changing, so you either adapt or you get left behind, I guess.
That's true. So what is the solution?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
The solution is what he just said. If you want to keep playing competitively in Apex Legends, you gotta adapt and overcome. You gotta figure it out. If you're a controller bro, if you're an M&K bro, and you vehemently hate the other input for whatever reason, you just gotta figure it out, because the developers are gonna do whatever they want to do for whatever reason. And you may think you have like some input on what should happen, but at the end of the day, it's their game. They're going to do whatever they want, and you're just there to play. That's all.
Everyone wants to be having fun. Everyone wants a game that they can play, and everyone wants the game to be successful too. So yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think the main thing is like, if they just need to maybe look at fine-tuning rotational aim assist, having something react for you and not having to rely on your own reaction time is kind of wild. Like, I think
Honestly, in my own opinion, currently for Apex Legends, like, I know there's like this weird rank system where like about 20+% of the player base is like in master right now. I would even venture to say that most of those players, now I'm just guessing, most players that play Apex Legends are on controller, and most of those players in master are on controller. And if I look at the Steam charts, the trend of concurrent players, at least on Steam, is trending up. Everybody's getting their master's badges. Everyone's got, purple gang, whatever. I would even venture to say that, even though we don't have the numbers, I would venture to say that like all the skins from the store, like they are at record revenues right now, because when you play like a ranked game mode or whatever, the higher the rank you are, the more attachment you have to that game. And when you have a lot of attachment to that game, you kind of feel like obligated to be like, oh my goodness, this game let me get to this really high level. I need to repay this game back in some way, shape, or form. Who's my favorite character? It's this guy or this girl. I'm going to go buy some skins for that character because this game let me get master. I'm going to get some skins. All right. I would not be surprised if, because of this ranking system, more people have spent money on the store. And because of that, at the end of the day, as much as you don't want to believe it, Respawn is a business. And when sales are up, they're happy. All right. Even if it's at the detriment of the competitive integrity of the game via the matchmaking system, aim assist, whatever. So if you're in that position, then what do? They're making record sales from skins and whatever because everyone's master. Everyone's like, ooh, I'm hot. I'm new hotness. Then what?
I think that's where it definitely needs some fine tuning to put it in line with mouse and keyboard. And I'm sure like almost all mouse and keyboard players would be happy to take like a movement nerf if it meant, being able to play on a more level aiming field, which kind of, makes things more even, I suppose.
Okay, so any closing thoughts on the debate?
I mean, I think it's obviously very situational. At the end of the day, I think it doesn't really make too much sense to have both inputs playing against each other when they're so vastly different. I think that's like the bottom line. It's
Yeah.
obviously unfair in a lot of situations, but I think we're pretty close to getting a bit more of an even playing field. And yeah, I guess like that's kind of like my opinion or my take on it.
So you're not too bothered at the moment?
I mean, it could be balanced a little bit better, but it is what it is, you know. So either adapt or get left behind.
Yeah, fair enough. So we're going to see you on controllers soon?
I doubt it. I'm just gonna keep pushing myself on mouse and keyboard and hope for the best.
I'm with you on that one. All right, and if people want to follow you and see your progress in the pro scene, where can they go?
I stream on Twitch. I have a YouTube channel. All of my socials are BulletL. So yeah,
Okay, I'll leave those
Nice.
links in the description. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll chat to you again another time.
sounds good, man. Appreciate you for having me.
Okay, so a key
This was a nice little conversation. I like that. That was cool.
takeaway there is something I would say too. We're actually not that far off the balance mark. I'm rarely bothered by controller players. That said, there are some situations that I think
Okay, so keep in mind that Bullet said he wasn't too bothered by it, and then Rocket Jump Ninja isn't too bothered by it. But I would say both of those people are probably on the higher side of like a skill curve. Like if you have like a bell curve, like a normal bell curve of skill, I would say Rocket Jump and Bullet are on the higher side of skill for M and K. And like he was saying before, if you're on the higher side of M and K, it doesn't matter too much. Yeah, it's like kind of annoying, but for the most part, it's manageable. What about all the other M and K bros that aren't up there in skill? What if they're like in the middle and they're like trying to decide, oh, should I invest more time in Apex on M and K? And they're like kind of in the middle. Maybe they're like gold or plat or diamond, whatever. What's the incentive for them? Should they just stop playing on M and K and just switch to controller? Or I don't know. That's a good question.
controllers just easily win most of the time, especially when there's visual clutter, and of course if the player is good enough. And this is where I want to talk about the nerfs to mouse and keyboard more, because if I show you Quake, it's way more pure. Check out the recoil on the guns.
Oh yeah, Quake is a great example of really fast movement, really speedy aim. It's crazy. Like I've played Quake casually, and I'm just like average at it. I'm not fucking fantastic or anything, but the experience playing Quake or whatever this version of Quake is, I think this is Quake Champs or whatever. Um, the experience is awesome. There's very low visual clutter. There's not a lot of recoil, and there's like a little momentum system or whatever where you can like build up speed, and if you're really good at it, you can like thrive. But for the most part, it's fun even as like a casual.
Notice the screen isn't shaking? It's just the gun shaking,
Yeah.
so it's not hindering your aim. Contrast that with Apex Legends, and look at this. The whole screen is shaking, and on mouse, you actually have to learn the recoil patterns. Yeah,
Kind of, you know, Apex, you got aim smoothing or whatever, but I understand what he's getting at.
I know there are tricks to lower that, like jitter aiming and strafe smoothing and whatever,
Yeah.
but that's just extremely poor game design and more of a bug. Basically, the movement
Oh, he did call the devs out and said it was a bug and is unintentional. So because of that, you should take away all the screen shake and just leave the gun shake. I like that argument. That's a good argument.
in Apex is so slow, unlike Quake, that to make it harder to hit, they had to put a bunch of recoil and other nerfs to make it more competitive. Controller bypasses a lot of that. It seems to be a much smoother experience on controller. Still jittery, but at least it doesn't affect your aim as much. Honestly, Apex rattles my brain. Like, I love the underlying game. As I said in my review, there's a lot of positives. But after a
Yeah.
while, I just need a break. Having to sit through watching all these flashing lights with the jerky random camera movement, things getting in my vision like the Peacekeeper. I'm like, just let me aim. To relax, I have to jump into a game of Quake. Who thought Quake was relaxing? It's
Yeah, that's actually kind of hilarious. I don't know if there's like any like matchmaking rating or like casual stuff or whatever, but anytime I play Quake, it's just if I get bodied by like some guy that's like insanely good, I'm just like, okay, he is just outskilled me, and I'm fine with that because it's how it goes. You know, if some like great like NBA star were to just walk to the park or whatever and like just be like shooting like if Steph Curry was like just in a park just like shooting threes and like, oh, let's play horse. I'm not gonna get mad because I lose to Steph Curry playing horse, all right? Because he's put in the time and the effort.
It's way faster, but it's so much nicer to play. It's smooth and clear, it's beautiful, and I still find it fun. But the Apex gameplay is more interesting because it's so detailed. It's just all the nerfs to mouse aim that really kills it. I would never test a mouse in Apex full aim. The only thing I'm testing in Apex is the scroll wheel. The rest is just highlights for the fun of it, something different. Otherwise, all my testing is done in Quake, because it's the only game I've found that's really good for testing mice. If Apex actually allowed us to aim properly, then maybe it would be a good test. There's too much random factor in it though. I'd rather just keep Apex as a fun game. But anyway, I also want to show you just how much your camera is moving, as in your point of view. So I put a crosshair on the monitor and filmed that.
Oh yeah.
Now watch how much the crosshair in-game moves. So look at the center point, and then look at where the crosshair in the game is. The monitor crosshair is not moving from the center. And that's a bigger nerf on mouse than controller.
Yeah, that's crazy. And if the developers were here, they would say it's for the sake of immersion, because it's more believable if your crosshair like goes up a little as your gun, you know, like right here, like is kind of up, you're cocking it back or whatever. They would argue it's for the sake of immersion. All right, that's all they would say.
Controller will pull toward the enemy, so it doesn't matter as much. But look at it, there are so many movements you have to counter or just ignore, because the crosshair isn't actually where it should be. And this is what it looks like when you drop from height in Quake. And here's what it looks like in Apex.
Oof. Did you see when you hit the ground, your head and the whole camera is just like, it does that whole noise. Again, this is for the sake of immersion, all right? Now, granted, if they want to say immersion, then I'm going to say, if I want to get immersed in a game, I'm just going to go play a different game. How about that? It's simple.
Now side by side. And Apex does this all the time. If you have an heirloom, it's even worse off the drop.
Yeah.
If you hot drop with Valks, it actually makes it pay to lose, or get lucky to lose. I've also noticed just how much rage, toxicity, and unhappy people there are in Apex.
Yeah.
Little things in games start to feel much bigger than they are. Because I think subconsciously, anyone who plays this a lot is being pushed to their limits. Not in terms of gameplay, although that's hard too, but in tolerance. The amount of aggravating features in Apex, all the nerfs, all the horrible screen shakes, flashes, jerkiness, unexpected movement, what's it actually doing to our brains as we try really hard to play properly?
It is bad, man. But, you know, to be fair, being toxic in a game is not exclusive to Apex, all right? If you look at any competitive game at the tippy top, or even in like the center or whatever, there's always going to be toxic people that, you know, just talk shit for whatever reason. Your mom this, your trash that, so on and so forth. That's not an exclusive thing to Apex. But I think the reason he's mentioning this is because a lot of the times when I was like really playing Apex, is like when I would get like heated or whatever, it wasn't because I just died. It was most of the time it was a skill issue or whatever, admittedly, but it was because of all the visual clutter and reticle moving and this or that, or all the little examples that he mentioned before. So I just stopped playing, and I am way like more mentally like happy.
All of this going on. I've played over 2,000 hours now in a year and a half,
Dang.
and I think I'm at the end of my patience. The only way I can play this game is using single shot weapons with lower recoil. Maybe I'm alone in that, but just pay attention to how you're feeling after playing Apex. The game is great, don't get me wrong. I think it's all these little things that I'm mentioning that are adding to the lower tolerance, impatience, and aggravation. If you've learned the recoil patterns or play on controller, this probably doesn't affect you as much. But I think a fair few people would be getting agitated by how the game is designed and not even realizing it. Plus all the bugs and issues. I've had the no footstep thing a fair few times now. Yeah,
The no footstep thing. Bro, that's like every match. Bro, that can affect the same player multiple times in the same match. They're not fixing that thing at all ever. That's funny.
It's frustrating. Add that to all the other stuff I'm talking about, it's
Yep.
not really a pleasant experience, especially if you solo queue. So my closing
Oh yeah, that was a good little highlight, especially if you solo queue, because as you know, this game is pretty popular. It's got a pretty healthy, more or less competitive scene. And what did the competitive bros do? They just got their big list of friends that are on all the pro teams. They're streaming the game, and they just three stack. Not every single solitary one at all times, you know, but for the most part, everybody's three stacking and just plowing the lobby or whatever. So, yeah.
thought is this. Aim assist isn't actually the real issue here. Controllers need help. They're extremely limited compared to mouse and keyboard. And if you don't believe that, try rocket jump like this on a controller. It may look
Yeah. But in Apex, a lot of controller people use the exact same sensitivity. I think it's like 4.3 linear or 4.3 classic or something like that. Whereas in other games, I think, like, this is back like in the day, whenever I played a controller game, there was always the trend of getting better. Like, yes, I know it's funny, like, oh, controllers can't get better. There was always a trend that you should be getting better, and you should always be trying to increase your sensitivity, aka make it more speedy or whatever. Because when your reticle can move around quicker, your capacity to express skill is higher. So that was the trend. Now, at least in Apex, it's just I have my sense. It's set in stone. I'm not deviating from it at all. I will go attack every situation with the same sense, with no intent to like change my sense up to get better or whatever. Whereas on mouse and keyboard, you got a lot of professionals that play with like a wide range of sensitivities. Everything down to like 15 cm all the way up to like 70 or 80 cm or whatever. So you're like got these little like tiny wrist boys versus like the big I'm gonna break my arm in half boys there. So it seems to be working, so there's that.
easy, but I'm using precise angles to rocket jump through all these doorways. It looks smooth and simple, but it's years and years of experience. You just cannot get that sort of accuracy on controller. So I firmly believe they need assistance. And to keep the player base strong and healthy, I'd rather keep controller players happy. The main problem I see, and what I'd like to see changed, is all the nerfs to mouse and keyboard. They need to address the visual clutter and forced camera movement, which affect mouse more than controller. If Apex Legends can address those nerfs, and I say nerfs because they're making it harder to play on those inputs, then I don't think aim assist will bother people as much. Lower the recoil, lower the visual clutter, lower the camera movement, keep aim assist on controllers, and then we'll probably have a pretty even playing field.
Those are actually very reasonable. All those little bullet points he just said. I might come back and play, like, if they change some of those things. But I mean, I don't think any of those are in the works for the foreseeable future. So I'm just like, I'm good.
I think people will rage less. In-game leaders will be able to focus more without so many distractions to their play.
Oh yeah. And if all those changes were to get implemented, I think it would be easier to identify your own weaknesses as a player versus, oh, I died because visual clutter. I died because the recoil. I died because XYZ things not in my control. Anytime you take control away from the player and you take agency away from them and they're like severely punished, as in they got down, they got killed, whatever, it feels really bad as a player. And I don't think that is like healthy for the game.
And Apex will be better. That's my opinion as a wannabe game designer, and also as someone who has gamed since these were the best consoles on the market.
Dang.
Yeah, I'm old with a lot of experience. That's my addition to the debate anyway. But it is a debate, so jump in with your opinion. What do you think of aim assist on controllers? Or different input methods playing against one another? Should it be different in the pro scene versus casual? What about ranked versus casual? And what about the nerfs to mouse and keyboard like I've talked about? Leave your thoughts below. Big thanks to BulletL for his input.
Yeah.
And this video is brought to you by the Razer Wolverine V2 Pro. They were kind enough to send one out to me, so I could test a controller in Apex. Sub, like, and share. Catch ya.
Nice. Oh. I knew about Rocket Jump Ninja, but for all these years, I thought it was like an organization or something. I didn't know it was just like some dude. So that was actually a great video highlighting like the Apex Legend M&K versus roller debate. It's there. It's forever happening. I don't foresee anything changing. But yeah, it's always just fun to just bullshit about it and talk about it. But I think that's all we're ever going to be able to do. So it is what it is. But yeah, overall, I think that was a good video. And yeah, I'm a fan of Rock Jump Ninja now. That was awesome. I liked it, and I want to see more. So that's pretty much it. That's all I gotta say. And all right, take it easy, guys. Later.